I was lying in a hospital bed in the dirty basement when Rick the surgeon appeared out of the darkness. He showed me a picture of the girl and told me that tomorrow I would look the same. This was my 12th plastic surgery. Soon my eyes were darkening from the usual anesthesia and I passed out. In the morning, I woke up in my room and with difficulty went to the mirror. When I took off the bandages, there was a new face in the reflection, one in one, like the girl in the photo. Thank God this was my last case. I would start a new life and no more surgeries. I opened the closet to change and in the corner sat my exact copy. The girl in the photo named Zoe, only bound and with her mouth taped shut. She was in shock. Sure, I looked like her crazy twin. She looked at me in horror, but I just took the clothes and locked the door. Then Rick, my plastic surgeon and part-time boss, came in. He showed a picture of the guy and said coldly that it was Dean. I had to disguise myself as his girlfriend, sneak into his office, and take the red folder with the documents. Rick gave me the phone of the girl who was sitting in the closet, the keys, and sent me to the case. Half an hour later, I was in a taxi going to this Dean and suddenly I saw myself in the rearview mirror and realized that after so many operations, I no longer remembered what my real face looked like. And then I started to remember how it all started. Since childhood, as long as I can remember, I have always been in the world of crime. My dad was a serious authority figure among the bandits, and he always took me with him on various cases. But when I was 16, my father was killed by some mobsters. Apparently, Dad owed the money that was lying at our house. I decided not to return them to the mafia. I had to live on something. I did deny myself anything, and the money quickly ran out. But soon the mafias demanded them back, and I had already wasted everything. I tried to keep a low profile, but I was being followed, and I realized that the only chance to live a normal life was to change my appearance. I found an ad for plastic surgeon Rick on the darknet, and a week later, we met. Rick seemed surly to me, and when he heard I didn't have any money, he was about to throw me out. But I panicked and confessed that the mafia was looking for me. Rick was silent, and I was afraid to move, but after a pause, he said he would help. I started to thank Rick, but he cut me off and said that he wasn't doing it out of mercy. He had a condition. He would perform plastic surgery on me, and I would have to impersonate other people. I recoiled. Why would he do that? Rick continued. He needed help with his business. Business? I was surprised. With a new face, I would break into different houses and steal, he added dryly. What? The mobsters got rid of my son. You'll have the same fate if you don't help me. Even though I didn't believe in fate, I had no other choice. I'd rather work for a crazy surgeon than fall into the hands of a mobster. We had been living together ever since. Rick gave me face-changing surgeries every month and sent me on missions, but he didn't pay me a penny of what he stole, so I took a percentage of the work myself. This was enough for me to buy clothes and restaurants. Rick still didn't notice I was stealing from him. I was happy with this life, but soon I began to notice that with each surgery, the scars on the skin took longer to heal, and I gradually began to go crazy and I occasionally heard in my head the voices of the girls whose faces I wore. Then I knew it was time to stop. Last week, I'd been working for Rick for exactly a year. That same day, I went to him and begged him to let me go earlier because I was doing my duty honestly. There was a moment of silence, but then he nodded. Seriously? I asked, surprised and uncertain. Yes, perhaps you deserve your freedom. Rick answered, just one last case and we're even. I agreed without hesitation, of course. So very soon, Rick gave me plastic surgery. Suddenly, I heard a cry of an angry taxi driver. Apparently, I was too deep in my memories that I did not hear how we arrived. I paid and went out near the big house. Well, this was my last case. And then, freedom. My mission was to steal a red folder of documents from this house. Carefully opening the door, I found myself in a small hall. It was so quiet that I jumped when someone called out to me. It was Dean, the owner of the house, and he was cute, tall, and athletic. He hugged me and told me that there was a surprise waiting for his beloved in the living room. I let out a sigh of relief. He didn't suspect anything and thought I was his girlfriend. We sat down at the table. A romantic candlelit dinner was waiting for me there, and Dean was good at courting. But suddenly the smile faded from his face. He stared at my hand. Oh man, I forgot to cover my tattoo with my sleeve. I quickly hid my hands under the table, but my heart was pounding. I couldn't let Dean get suspicious, or I wouldn't get the red folder. Dean looked at me suspiciously. I lied about the tattoo being temporary, but I didn't think he believed me. There was no time to delay. I had to look around the house and find a folder. Honey, will you excuse me? I said and immediately got up from the table. Since the first floor was small, I assumed that the folder with the documents was somewhere upstairs. I carefully climbed the stairs and at the end of the corridor, I saw an old door. I listened for Dean, but it was all quiet. Then I tiptoed to that door. It was Dean's office. I crept over to the desk to find a red folder, but then it was like an electric shock. I noticed a police badge on the desk. Did that mean Dean was a cop? He must have seen through me by now. At that moment, I heard the stairs creak. Oh no. I barely made it out of the office before I came face to face with Dean. He asked incredulously what I was doing in his office. Trying to keep the tremor out of my voice, I said I had to leave immediately. After that, I ran as fast as I could down the stairs to the exit. I was so sick of pretending to be someone. When I went home an hour later, Rick was watching TV. I immediately started shouting that he should have said Dean was a cop. But Rick didn't even bat an eye. He got up from the couch, came close to me and said that if I wanted freedom, I would get him a folder. A lump rose in my throat. Rick could expose me to the mafia at any second, or worse, leave me as a slave forever. I took a deep breath and went to my room. I needed to figure out where the damn folder was. I opened the closet and told Zoe that if she didn't tell me where Dean kept the files, I'd kill her and blame her boyfriend. Zoe begged me not to touch Dean and stammered out that he kept all the files in the desk drawers in his office. Man, why didn't I look in there right away? I taped Zoe's mouth shut and closed the closet. I would get this file out tomorrow and finally get rid of Rick's slavery. In the morning, I was woken up by a call. It was Zoe's phone. I saw Dean's name on the screen. Damn. Dean asked anxiously if I was alright. Why did I run away last night and not come to sleep? Stammering, I apologized and lied that my friend had poisoned herself yesterday. I had to stay with her. I waited tensely for Dean to respond. What if he was trying to trip me up? But Dean asked sympathetically if his help was needed. That was close. I said it was alright and I was going home. I took a sleeping pill and called a taxi. The plan was that I would put Dean to sleep and calmly take out the folder. When I arrived at Dean's, I found him on the stairs in the hallway. He looked like he hadn't slept all night. Dean asked suspiciously when I found a friend, since I had just moved to the city. Heck, I quickly came up with an excuse and immediately offered to watch a movie together. Dean smiled and agreed. While he was choosing a movie, I went to the kitchen to make tea. I was just taking the sleeping pills out of my pocket when my phone rang in my pocket. It was Rick. I decided to call back when Dean was asleep, stirred the powder in the tea, and went into the living room. But Dean was already asleep on the couch. Apparently, he really had been waiting for me all night. I wasted no time in rushing to his office. I needed to deal with everything quickly. While I was going, I decided to call Rick back. What do you have? I'm on the case. But at his words, I froze in place. Zoe ran away. I panicked. But Rick told me to pack up, find the documents, and get out of there. She could show up here at any time, and then Rick and I would be screwed. My new life was at stake. I decided to fight to the end. In the office, I rummaged through all the desk drawers and finally found a red folder. And then I heard the door creak. Dean must have woken up. I decided not to hesitate, and hiding the folder under my jacket, was already going down to the door. Then I saw Zoe sitting next to Dean on the couch. We looked like twins. Dean stared at us in shock. "You can't fight the fate, honey," she whispered to me. But while Dean was recovering from the shock, I ran for the front door. I jumped out on the road, stopped the taxi, and miraculously, I was in the car. Locked the door and shouted to the taxi driver, "Let's go." He hit the gas and we drove away. When I got home, I immediately threw a red folder on Rick's desk. He only coldly replied, "You were free." I was so happy, but now I needed Rick's help again. I got down on my knees and begged him to make me a new face. For the last time, any face. Just to get away from Dean. He was a cop. He wouldn't leave me so easily, and I wanted to start all over again. Rick took pity on me and took me to the basement. On the morning after my surgery, my face was terribly sore. But even under the bandages, I was smiling because now this whole nightmare was over. I took off the bandages, but when I unwrapped the last one, I saw a snub nose and plump lips in the reflection of the mirror. A painfully familiar face. Who was it? No, I recognized my real self. I just froze in horror. Why did he set me up like this? Now I would be found and torn to pieces by the mafias who hunted my father. Suddenly the phone vibrated. A message came. I know that you stole money from me. It's time to pay your debts. You can't fight the fate. And the signature, Rick. My legs gave out and I fell on the couch, right on top of the remote control. The TV turned on and I heard a familiar voice. A fateful accident helped me catch a criminal. Dean replied to the reporter. I turned up the volume and stared at the screen. What? Next to Dean was Rick. The cuffs on him. Dean said that he had been chasing Surgeon Rick for many years, but in the end, his girlfriend helped him catch the criminal. My thoughts were confused. Tears welled up in my eyes from despair. Perhaps fate really exists, and you can't fight it, and soon the mobsters would find me. At that moment, there was an insistent knock on the door. I took out my phone and wanted to call the police, but I just looked at my reflection in the mirror and said to myself, let fate decide for itself. Did you like the video? Subscribe and like it. Support the channel. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan, and I'm 18. Have you ever faced difficulties because of your appearance? Have you ever felt different? I felt, despite the fact that I did not face direct mockeries. Watch the video to the end, and you will learn how to live with a height of only 4 feet. As you can see, I really wasn't tall. I'm only 4 feet tall. These are the consequences of an accident that I got into when I was still a child and stopped growing. But that doesn't stop me from living. I have friends, a boyfriend, and a hobby. I love science, especially physics, and I've not encountered bullying. I met my boyfriend a little over a year ago when he transferred to our school. His name is Steven. He didn't mind my height, and our relationship developed so well that a year later, after graduating from high school, we decided to move in together. And that's where the problems started. At home, he took care of me, helped me with everything. And at first, of course, I liked it. But then he started to go too far. I could no longer make my own breakfast or dress. He immediately jumped up and forced his help. And when I went out, he called me every half hour and got mad if I was late. Have you ever lived with your other half? If yes, has the relationship between you changed? He explained his behavior by saying that he was worried about me. But I'm not a child or a cripple. I can take care of myself. I tried to tell him that, but he didn't seem to hear me. Then it got worse. One day, we went to the central park of our city just to walk and talk. A group of several people was walking towards us. When Kevin saw them, he let go of my hand, and his face changed. He blushed and lowered his head. When they saw him, they came up and greeted him. It turned out to be some kids from his old school that he hadn't seen since he left. When they asked him to introduce me, he was embarrassed and said that we were in the same class. He didn't tell them that I was his girlfriend. I was in shock. Is he ashamed of me? One of the guys made a crack about me, something like, I thought you already had a daughter. Steven laughed and said I was too small to be his daughter. After a little more conversation, we parted from them. I was startled. Not only didn't he stand up for me, but he also agreed with these brutes when they made fun of me. I tried to understand him and not be offended and to pay attention to it in the hope that this would not happen again. However, I couldn't help thinking that my boyfriend was ashamed of me. That was the first time I felt handicapped. The only thing that distracted me from these thoughts was science. But even with that, the difficulties began. After graduating from high school, I decided to study with a tutor for a year before going to university in order to pass the entrance exams. I met twice a week with the teacher who taught me physics. Steven was well aware of this. But for some reason, at one point, when I started to get ready for class, he made a scene. He said that I went to the tutor too often and that I should be taught by a woman, not a young man. I didn't know what to say, and I kept packing. He knew how important this was to me. What questions could there be? My silence made him angry, and he tried to snatch the backpack out of my hands. He said I wasn't going anywhere, and that he would find me a tutor for my gender. I couldn't stand it. We started fighting. I shouted at him that he had no right to control me, and he was sure that he had to do it. He kept reducing everything to my height, and I was very offended by it. In the end, he even said that with my health problems, I should just give up the idea of becoming a scientist. When I heard this, I froze, not believing that he could say such a thing. I took my notebooks and I left. After class, I decided to think about it. I realized that even though he was acting awful, I loved him and maybe he was just worried about me. I decided to become more feminine for him. I started wearing heels to appear taller and started wearing more makeup. I tried to be polite and affectionate. I also cut back on my physics classes to spend more time with him. However, he either took these efforts for granted or even laughed at me when he saw me in a new feminine outfit. I felt that his attitude towards me remained the same, and it was very depressing for me. I no longer knew what to do to make him perceive me as a complete human being. Have you ever been in such a situation? Have you ever felt that your loved one doesn't appreciate you and treats you like a stupid child? Soon, my hope that a relationship would improve was completely extinguished. At one point, I picked up his phone to call the tutor and warn him that my mobile was dead and I would be late. As I held it in my hands, a notification appeared on the screen, a message from a pretty girl. I knew this was wrong, but my curiosity and anxiety got the better of me. I opened his text with trembling hands. I wish I hadn't known. In his texts for this girl, he constantly complained about me, that I was obsessed with studying, that I was boring, that he was tired of hiding me from his friends. The same messages he wrote to a couple of his close friends, and, believe it or not, another girl. Moreover, he constantly paid them both compliments and courted them in every way. How it pained me to see it! Out of anger and resentment, I threw the phone against the wall. Stephen came to check it out. When he saw that I was crying and his phone was broken, he seemed to understand immediately. He started making excuses, saying that he didn't really think the way he wrote, but I didn't want to listen to him. I realized I didn't want to see him again. Trying to hold back tears, I picked up my backpack and packed it with the most necessary things. Stephen tried to stop me, but I just pushed him away. I went to see my friend Lily. We met at a photo exhibition that she organized. She works as a manager in a fashion agency. When I told her about it, she told me that I should never stay in this relationship. In her opinion, Stephen's behavior destroyed my self-esteem and dreams. I knew she was right, but I couldn't accept it. Stephen and I had been together for so long, and it was so hard to believe that it would end like this. Lily said that she had an idea to help me take my mind off it. The agency where she worked was looking for people to shoot a project about people with disabilities and unusual appearance. I never even thought of acting, but I agreed, thinking it might be fun. Soon after, Lily sent me to a photo casting session. She told me not to take it seriously, but just to relax and have fun. After casting, I sat in the hallway and waited for the results. Soon, the manager came out, selected 2 girls, and sent the others home, including me. Of course I was upset, although I tried not to expect anything. Lily met me at home. When she saw that I was upset, she apologized and said that she seemed to have made it worse. I tried to say, "It's all right, Lily," but I was secretly thinking that I wasn't good enough here either. However, that evening I received a message from this agency. It read, "One of the selected models will not be able to participate in the shooting, and you were the next applicant." This meant that I was being taken. I was very happy and grateful to Lily for helping me. Soon, the shooting took place. I was very pleased to feel beautiful and interesting for someone. When I was being shot, I made faces and assumed silly poses. It was really great. The photographer was laughing with me, and I felt so confident for the first time. All this time, I kept thinking about Stephen, and participating in the shoot really helped me understand that I was only holding on to him because of my inner insecurity and fear that no one else would like me. So I thought it was over. Lily suggested that I stay with her, and I gladly agreed. I also got a call from the agency and was offered to continue participating in the shooting, but I refused. It was great, but my passion was science, and I continued to study even harder than before. However, there was something else that I decided to devote time to. When I saw at the casting how upset the other girls who were not accepted were, I realized that I was not the only one facing problems because of my appearance. Lily and I decided to open a hotline to support those who face abuse and bullying based on appearance and physical disabilities. We regularly get calls from people who need help, and we support them as much as we can. If you like this story, then like and subscribe to the channel. Love and appreciate yourself.
That day, as usual, I was sitting in my room trying to record this stupid video. What am I supposed to do? He'll kill me if I don't record everything in time. The first thought that occurred to me was to close the door. I managed to do it right in front of his nose, but he was banging on it so hard that I thought that the door was going to fly off its hinges. I think he's gone. I'm so scared. But a minute later, he began to break into the room with an axe. No, don't! After the accident Dad changed a year ago, a truck crashed into our car. My mother covered me with her body and died on the spot. My father's arm was badly damaged, and then he had it amputated. Because of this, he was immediately fired, and he gave this company 20 years of his life. I felt sorry for him. Dad was depressed, but I tried to be strong and I supported him as much as I could. Even though I cried into my pillow almost every night, that's when I started making YouTube videos. I wanted a distraction. Moreover, I was pretty good at it. I didn't even notice how the first fans and first money from ads appeared. I shared my success with my father. He hugged me for the first time in a long time and called me a good girl. I almost cried with happiness. He started spending a lot of time with me, asking me what I was doing, and we became very close. Dad also became interested in YouTube. He followed all the trends and subscribed to new channels. As a joke, I decided to show my dad what real popularity is, and just for fun, I brought out the formula of the most successful YouTube project. It turned out something between the Keeping Up with the Kardashians and trashy videos with challenges. With his eyes burning, Dad declared that he understood everything and ran to his room. He was thrilled. I haven't seen him like this. One morning, I was going to school, but the door was locked and my father calmly said that he had transferred me to homeschooling. When I asked why would he do that, he solemnly announced that now I don't have time for school because today we are launching a super successful YouTube show. This was way too much. I got angry and suggested that my father find a job for his age and leave YouTube for teenagers, and he didn't even react. A week later, it was even worse. I was sitting in the kitchen having breakfast when some people in dirty shoes came into the house. My father was with them. They searched every corner of the house and gave Dad a check. What? Did Dad just sell our house? And there's more. I got a text message saying that all the money was withdrawn from my bank card, but I earned them on YouTube myself. That was too much. I wanted to find out what was going on, but my father just confronted me with the fact that we were moving. Gosh! For the sake of the show, my father went all in, spending all the money to rent this luxury estate, as he called it. Although it was actually just a wreck. When we went inside, I could barely hold back my tears. Yeah, once this huge house was inhabited by rich people, but now it barely stood together. Of all the rooms it had, only mine, where the shooting of the so-called show was supposed to take place, was renovated. After a week in this terrible house, I decided to talk to my subscribers live for the first time. I did have time to answer a couple of questions when I heard my dad coming to me. My father was acting weird. He said everything was almost ready and our life would change soon. It looked pretty scary. The next day, he cut off the Wi-Fi. He set the access to the network on time. I didn't recognize my daddy anymore. But the most hell was waiting for me ahead. We started shooting a live blog based on my father's script. Now, meet me, Nikki, the spoiled daughter of rich parents with bipolar disorder and aggressive behavior. My father wrote out every word and movement and made sure I followed the script. He made me do crazy things like jumping in an ice bath, shave my eyebrows, eat worms, and I couldn't even object. He immediately went mad. I started to think about escape, but I felt sorry for my dad. I justified his behavior with the stress and I hoped that everything would pass soon. So I tried to be nice on camera and believed in the best. I think that's why I got such an extensive fan club. Because of my fear, I used to wake up from nightmares in the middle of the night. It seemed as if the show's growing success and the money had driven my father completely mad. He hired bodyguards, a housemaid, and a chef. They all were participating in shootings. Dad himself played the role of the butler. I felt like I was in a horror movie. The only good thing about this hell was watching Jamie. We became friends, and he quickly realized that I was a hostage in this house. One day, Jamie and I decided to bake cakes, and he immediately took out a pack of almond flour. No! I have a terrible allergy to almonds. I was so wrapped up with Jamie that I forgot about airing with a cool beauty blogger. At that moment, my father crept up behind me. He seemed to be trying to frighten me as a joke and suddenly grabbed me by the shoulders. And I suddenly leaned to the side and hit my forehead on the corner of the closet. It was so painful. My father started yelling. There was a red mark on the forehead from the blow left, which by the evening will become a bruise, and everything should be perfect. I trudged off to cover marks. The earring was tense, my head ached from the blow, and I was trying to fit the image of a problem-rich woman. Kat asked me to wash off my makeup. I resisted for a long time. My father waved his hands in the background, making it clear that I would never wash it off, but I had to comply. Kat pretended not to notice the bruise. She was joking and reading random comments. And one of them was, "Did someone beat you up?" I jumped on the spot. And I think it was obvious that I was hiding something. My father never laid a hand on me. And the bruise was the last straw. It's settled. I'm running away tonight. After the success with the earring, my dad was so happy that he forgot to lock my door. This was a chance. At night, I started to make my way to the back exit and was almost there. But the guard was sleeping in the kitchen. I tried to get around him, but I hit the dishes and everything fell to the floor. Then I rushed for the door as fast as I could. I ran out into the street, but right before the fence, the guard caught up with me. I was imprisoned again. The next airing was a week later. I looked frankly bad and with a stained smile told another crazy story from my life. And in one of the comments, I saw, "If you need help, start talking about dresses." I immediately opened the door and pulled out my dresses, and then the internet disappeared. My father rushed into the room, grabbed my arm, and started yelling. Like I went against the script and almost ruined his whole brilliant plan. He dragged me down the hall and then threw me in the closet. I sat there for a couple of hours in the dark and cold. Suddenly I heard footsteps. It was Jamie. I begged him to open the door, but he curtly wished me a happy birthday and left. I was alone again. In the morning, my father let me out and began to congratulate me as if nothing had happened. It was so disgusting. I didn't want anything anymore. I just became the perfect doll for my father's show. I went live and got a lot of messages asking me to make a birthday cake. Fans wanted to see me blow out the candles. There were so many messages that my father agreed. But of course, according to his next plot, trashing the kitchen and throwing Jamie with food, I was troubled. One good thing about this day was that I could spend more time with Jamie. I wasn't even offended that he didn't open the closet. Maybe I really deserved it. When we started cooking, Jamie was clearly nervous. At one point, he took out almond flour and whispered, "Trust me." What was he doing? He knew about allergies. Although, I don't care. Dolls don't talk. I silently kneaded the flour into the dough and tasted it. The almonds made my throat swell, and I started to choke, just like when I was a kid. Then my mother saved me, and how I wished she were here. I didn't know what was going on. I think my father shouted something about medicine and disappeared. I couldn't see anything, but I felt like someone was holding me. I knew it was Jamie when I heard him yell at the guards, "Get out! She's dying!" Here's the ambulance. They were so fast. It was already very hard to breathe. I thought this was the end. And suddenly a breath. I somehow opened my eyes and saw my father trying to catch up with the ambulance in the distance. As soon as I came to my senses, the guys told me that they were all my fans and real doctors. It turned out that after the airing, they created a closed fan group. Together with Jamie, they developed a plan for the abduction. I was brought home to Jamie's, and there were my fans and lots of goodies. I went live and immediately told the whole truth. Jamie handed me my phone that night. My father called at least 100 times. I didn't pick up the phone and blocked his number. A chill ran down my spine. "No, Dad, I'm never coming back to you."